My name's Lauryn Steel. I am an Economic Development Officer with the Council's Strategic Economic Investment Service, and I am leading for our team on the business case development for the Stranraer Marina Expansion Project. Tonight, my focus really is about telling you a little bit about the project, where we are at the moment, what the next steps are, and what that might mean for all of you and for all of the people of Stranraer. So, what is the Stranraer Marina Expansion Project? It's a project to expand the existing marina that is already present down at the waterfront. There are a lot of different elements included within the project, but I think one important thing to say today is that the design development is still at a very early stage. So we're currently around about the sort of concept design or outline design stage of the project. There are a lot of different parts of the project, some of which are about increasing the number of berths and looking at the operational things that are required to run a bigger marina like is proposed for here. And some of it is about improving the wave protection, putting in place some additional protection for having a much larger marina in place. But over and above that, there are other outputs and outcomes associated with the project that are about a lot more than just the number of berths that are present within the marina. The project sits as part of the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal, which, if you've not heard of that previously, it is a collection of 5 local authorities across the Borderlands area. So it's along the south of Scotland and the north of England. And the local authorities that are grouped together are all very similar in terms of the rurality of their area and the spacing of the population across quite a large geographical area. The project has currently secured £18 million worth of investment. £16 million of that is coming through the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal, and £2 million is from Dumfries and Galloway Council. The project is part of a wider approach to one waterfront, which is basically it's an approach where we're looking at the potential in terms of regenerating the waterfront at Stranraer. But it means that it sits as one project amongst a whole package, a whole range of different investments and different improvements. You've probably heard about the work that's happened down at the waterfront related to the Stranraer Water Sports Association's Let's Get Wet programme and the really exciting project that they're delivering to create a bespoke water sports hub down at the waterfront. You've heard a little bit about the SCAMP project as well and about the potential for having a marine research facility that will be down at the waterfront as well. And we've also got another council-led project which is funded through the Levelling Up Fund and UK government funding to look at transport mobility hubs right across the region, but one of those will be down at Stranraer Waterfront as well. The Marina project itself also does include providing new accommodation for the Coast Guard so that they can have that presence down at the waterfront and new bespoke accommodation to go with it. You've also heard and actually just built the boats that are part of the creative placemaking work that Maya, the waterfront artist, has been participating or has been organising over the past year. And there's been a lot of talk around Harbourland and about the new piece of Scotland that is going to be created as part of the Marina project. And that's one of the things actually that I want to talk about tonight in terms of where we're actually going, what the next steps are, and how the project for expanding the marina is going to be taken forward. So there's a lot of potential about the project that isn't just about the specific things that will be built and the physical infrastructure that's going to be delivered. So what stage is the project at the moment? Looking back to March of 2021, the outline business case, which is it's the first stage of securing funding for the project. That was approved as part of the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal back in March 2021. And since then, there has been a bit of a pause in terms of being able to get a design team and consultants to work through both the technical design development and the business case development. So late 2023 and into the start of 2024, we undertook work to refresh the OBC. A lot of that focus was around the impact that both the COVID-19 pandemic and also the inflationary pressures of cost escalation and the other sort of impacts in terms of the market had in terms of the cost estimate for the project. So that was undertaken and was fully endorsed at the start of 2024, which means that now we are in the process of developing the full business case. The full business case is the mechanism by which we secure the Borderlands funding and we actually get it signed off so that we can start to draw down and spend that money to get into the delivery stage of the project. In order to be able to get to the full business case stage, though, we also need to be developing the detailed design for the project. And the challenge there is that when you move from concept design into detailed design to be able to get to that point and to actually price and have a tendered cost by a contractor or from multiple contractors before you can award the works contract, what you need to know is, well, what are we designing and what are we building? So taking us from that concept design, that early stage of design, and getting through into the detailed design means that actually what we need is the input of local people. That's quite a wide conversation, and there's quite a lot of that to be worked through. But specifically tonight, what I'm here to talk about is a phase of statutory consultation. So the statutory consultation specifically is related to planning legislation. So when we look at any planning applications that go into the council for approval or for assessment, those are rated or graded into 3 different levels or 3 different types of planning application. Mostly, the planning applications that will go in will all be considered to be local development. What that means is that projects are relatively small in size, from both a geographical perspective, how much space they'll occupy, but also from an impact perspective. In particular, when we're thinking about projects that are not local development, what we'd be thinking about there is often environmental impacts. The next category for larger projects, or those that may potentially have a negative impact, is major developments. In this instance, the Marina project, because of the scale of it, so the physical size of the whole development, but also because the nature of some of the works that are going to be undertaken within the offshore elements of the project, and when we're working within the actual harbour basin itself, we're working in the water, and also onshore where there is that potential for work that might have an impact in terms of habitats and species and other elements. So both because of the environmental impacts that need to be mitigated and managed, but also because of the sheer size of the project, the Marina project will be considered major development when it goes in for planning application. There's also a 3rd level, which is national developments. And because the Marina project sits within what is called the Stranraer Gateway at a Scottish Government level, within the National Planning Framework NPF 4, there is a Stranraer Gateway project which includes elements such as redevelopment of the East Pier, expansion of the Marina, and other considerations around transport and connections. So because of that, the project is also considered to be national development, but for the purposes of what I'm here to describe tonight, for the statutory consultation, the processes for both major and national are similar. So what I'll describe is the bit that is of interest to you, hopefully, which is the public-facing consultation. So the important thing to note here is that the consultation that we're going to do is a legal requirement. The planning legislation does require that we do, not just that we do the consultation, but also that we do it in a really specific way. And that is very much enshrined within the Act itself. More importantly, though, from our perspective, as we are working on the project day in and day out, it's actually about how we can capture community views to get local people's input and actually to feed that into the design process. because what we really need is to be able to get from the concept design through to a detailed design and know that we have captured everything that we need to inform the design team and make sure that they are focusing on and developing designs for the things that really matter to local people. As I said, it's not a single conversation, so even though I am talking specifically tonight about the statutory consultation, it's important to realise that that is part of the wider engagement that is happening within the town. It sits very nicely in parallel with the work that's been happening around the place plan, and we're very grateful that we've got our partnership with Creative Stranraer and the Stove, so we're able to have a much wider approach to having engagement with local people and having that input and participation from people right across the town. So when we're looking at that, we're actually thinking about how we can get the most meaningful result out of the process, but we're also wanting to add value to the project. And we're also wanting to look at the aspirations around what the waterfront might look like in the future, how local people want to engage and use that space and actually ultimately take ownership of that space. The really exciting part of it is actually through the development of the marina, we will be creating what I've heard the term used locally as a new piece of Scotland, which I think is really exciting. And I think the fact that local people can have a role in terms of actually shaping that vision around what that new piece of Scotland will look like is really, really important. So what is the consultation process? Essentially, once a project has been assessed and determined to be a major development or a national development, we need to, as an applicant, we need to submit a proposal of application notice. So that's something that's set out in the legislation as being the first point or the first action that we need to take. So that notice has now been submitted to the planning authority just to let them know that actually there is a proposal to submit a planning application about this project in the future. Through submission of that notice, it then starts a 12-week consultation period. The important thing about the 12 weeks is it is a minimum, so it is an absolute minimum in terms of the consultation period that's required. For this specific project, though, we will actually be exceeding the minimum. I think partially because it is important that we have the time to actually get as much information as we can, but also because we recognise this 12 weeks will go through the Christmas and New Year period and we don't want to lose time due to being unable to schedule events and things, or to be able to get a better attendance if we're able to avoid those times of year. The 12 weeks consultation does also include hosting 2 public events, and I'll move on in a future slide to tell you about the first of those 2 events. But the important thing about the consultation is that it is specifically shaped, or it is specifically designed to capture feedback, views and opinions from local people. It means that we have the information that we need to feed into the technical design, but it also helps to inform the business case development. So remembering that the business case is really all about how we get the sign-off and the approval for the funding package and being able to actually access that funding, draw it down and start to spend it to get us into delivery. So it's really important that through the business case development, we're able to say, this is what local people are saying and this is how it has shaped and informed the design. The first event is going to have an overview of the project. It will present the concept design. It will also have some other elements that are highlighted as being discussion points or areas of specific interest in terms of capturing the views and opinions of everybody who is engaging with that consultation. The second event is partially going to be about updating some of what was originally proposed in terms of that initial event. There's an element of feeding back and mirroring some of the things that have already been captured through that first event and also through some of the wider engagement work. but there's also an element of updating. So it might look like having different options presented at that point. So it's taking a step from the early concept design and actually starting to apply some of the detail that has been informed by what people have said during the first event and any of the other subsequent discussions. It's important to note that there is an element of only being able to influence where it is appropriate to the planning application process. As examples of things that possibly are not part of that and not necessarily able to be influenced, it would look like certain elements of the project or the design that are related to health and safety. For example, if something has to be done a specific way because it is to protect people and to make sure that there is a suitable, safe design in place. It might be other elements that are determined by regulatory requirements or legislation. For example, any buildings within the development will need to be in compliance with the building regulations. So if we were capturing feedback or opinions that were around specific construction details, those can't necessarily be changed because actually they do need to be compliant with that regulation. And the other side of that would also be applicable to design standards, for example, needing to follow British standards or Eurocodes. So on the flip side of that, what is up for grabs or what is able to be influenced? Really what that comes down to is what will the finished waterfront look like, what will it feel like, and how will it be used by local people? In particular, there is an area within the development, the new piece of Scotland, as I referred to earlier, which is essentially an area of reclaimed land, which means that during the works to construct the marina within the harbour basin, there will be a lot of dredged material to come out of there. And all of that material will mean that we can actually raise an area of land within the corner of the project and create a new piece of land by actually taking that space back from the sea. By raising the land, we're actually gaining a new area that can then be developed. That area in particular is of the greatest interest or of the greatest importance in terms of really getting a feel for and specific input and feedback around what people want to see down at the waterfront, how they want to interact with that space, whether there is a desire around being able to host events or have other direct aspirations for the waterfront that can actually be delivered through that space. Because it's a new space that isn't currently available, and actually at the moment it is a bit of a blank canvas, so there's a lot of potential there. So you might be thinking, what does this mean for me? You might even be thinking, why should I care about the project? There is an element of, and I've heard sort of comments around the fact that the Marina Expansion Project is really only of interest to people who have boats, who are potentially going to have their boat in the marina. But I think the really exciting thing about the project is that it is about so much more than just having a boat in the marina or about the number of boat berths that are being created within the project. I've spoken about the new piece of Scotland and what that might look like. And I've spoken about the potential in terms of people being able to have their views and being able to contribute into the development. For us, the priority here is all about making sure that whatever we do down at the waterfront does reflect what local people want and need, and actually what are the aspirations, what are the bigger things that may come further down the line. The project is part of a wider package in terms of all of the other projects and investments that are happening in Stranraer or are to come further down the line. And I think it's really important that the place plan as well has identified not just some projects for now, but also that potential in terms of the wider regeneration that might come along the line. And almost as well as you get investment coming into the town, having that effect of being a catalyst for further investment, further projects and further potential for change. I think one of the elements that I really wanted to get across tonight was about how making the waterfront a place where it does reflect what you want, what you want to see, and actually being able to say that you were part of that development. So I think the key point that I would like people to take away this evening is just about that engagement if you come along to those events, if you're taking part in any of the creative engagement as well that's happening in partnership with Creative Stranraer and the Snove, and actually being able to get your voice heard right through the statutory consultation process. It is going to make the waterfront your place. It is already your place, but I'm hoping that through this piece of work that actually what we can do is make sure that we're getting that widest cross-section of people to make sure that everything that is delivered down there is going to be exactly what people would like to see. I think the success of the project is not about the delivery of physical elements, it's not about the things that we build, and it's not even about delivering all of the things that we said we would within the business case. But actually, the success of the project is about the positive impact that comes out of the other side of it in terms of what does that investment really result in. And to make sure that it is successful, what that really needs to be is about the local people, the local voice, and what you want to see. And the only way we can do that is if people do come along and they do tell us what they want to see. I think it's really important as well to know that we do have a lot of people working away behind the scenes. There has been a lot of progress, although it has felt like it's gone quite quiet since the original consultation work was done as part of the outline business case. But there is a lot of busy work happening in behind the scenes at the moment, and we're getting geared up ready for this very first event. And from there will be an awful lot of touch points with local people in terms of both the statutory consultation, the wider engagement, and then moving forward into the communications plan side of things. So there is going to be a lot happening. There will be a lot coming out, and you will hear a lot more about the project now that we're getting into that stage where we really do need to get pinned down exactly what it is that we want to deliver, what it is that we need to design, and how do we take this project forward into the next steps. So how do you get involved? The first event out of the two public events for the planning consultation phase will be held on the 28th of November between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m, and it will be hosted at the Millennium Centre on George Street. There is going to be a second event which will happen in the new year, and we will be putting out information about that as well very shortly. Both events will be advertised locally. They'll be advertised in the local newspaper, and they're also going to be advertised on social media and through Creative Stranraer and the Stove. We will also have a further third event, which is specifically looking at socio-economic impacts. So that's looking at all of the wider benefits that will be delivered as part of the project. And it actually sits as part of the environmental impact assessment that will go with the planning application. All of the feedback, all of the input and views and opinions that are captured throughout this process will all feature within a report that will be part of the planning application submission. So it's really important that what we get through that process is both recorded in terms of how it has influenced the design. Sometimes that might mean recording how it was not possible to influence, and looking back at my previous comments around health and safety, regulatory and legislative impacts and/or design guidance. There will be an element of recording all of that. So some of that will be in the format of you said, we did. People were saying they wanted X. We have now added X into the project. We've then developed that and sought further views. So it will be about displaying that process and how we've gathered the information and how it has been able to influence the project. We've also got information that will be coming out locally around, coming out shortly around follow-up events. So I think the socio-economic event is likely to be coming first around about January time, and the second planning event will be coming around about February. Like I say, we will advertise those widely, and we will be getting as much information out over the coming weeks as well about the different elements of the process. But I am happy to take any questions today. The last thought that I would like to leave with you is that if I can ask, just from a personal perspective, for me, it is so important that this project really delivers everything that all of you want it to, and all of the people of Stranraer want it to. So my ask would be, if you are able to attend the event, if you're able to tell your friends, family, neighbours, and anyone else who is interested and would like to be involved in that process, to come along and to tell us what you think, because really it is so important, and we can't deliver the project without having all of you inputting to that process. So thank you very much. And thank you. That last slide, I'll just leave that up for now, but there is an email address there that if anybody does have any information, inquiries, you can put that across to the Marina Project team, and one of us will be able to get back to you. So that's our sort of, contact.